Hello everyone, this is Apache Geode by example. I'm Addison Huddy and today we're going to go over persistence and overflow. The last couple episodes we've looked at different region types and we're going to expand on that and look at how the replicated and partition regions can be, we can add on to those with persistence and overflow and exactly what that is and how to do it. We saw how in a replicated region, every single node in the cluster has the same keys and values on every single member. We saw in a partition region that is, we use buckets to more or less shard the data across multiple members. We saw how we can change the redundancy level of that type of region to allow ourselves to have some failover guarantees. We can also do that with persistence. So the Apache Geode documentation does a really good job of explaining the differences of persistence and overflow and how they can be used together. Persistence is a pretty simple concept. We have a bunch of stuff in memory. Again, Apache Geode, it's an in-memory data grid. Its primary store is in memory, but we can put things on disk when we need it. In this case, if we choose to make this region persistent, every single key and value will be persisted to disk. A put goes in, for X, let's say, the acknowledgement goes back to the client, and as that's happening, we're going to persist to disk. So we get the benefits of quick in-memory puts and gets, but also the benefits of having disk storage. Overflow, memory is more expensive. That's changing every day. Memory is definitely more expensive than just grabbing an SSD. But so in that case, we can overflow items to our disk based off of some type of LRU, least recently used policy. So let's just say in this case X is the mostly hasn't been used in a while. We're going to put that onto disk. But if we do a get for the keys stay on the member, the actual object stays on the client, or sorry, on disk. So if we do a get, we're going to pull that object for X back in, and then other more least recently used objects will go to disk. And these concepts can be used hand in hand. So in this case, we're persisting everything to disk, but we're only keeping those that are most recently used in memory. So the example today, we're going to go through persistence and see how restarting a server node and bringing back up, we kind of, our data is still going to be there. Although we've killed that process in the main memory, all that, it's going to go away. We're going to bring it back up from disk. So in this case, start script, locator, server, the region, and all we have to do when we create this region is choose a different region type. So we're going to have a replicated region, but we're also going to choose to have persistence, and that's all we have to do to create a region of that type. Now if we look we have a restart script that we're going to run. We're going to connect, we're going to stop the server and then start it back up again. In the example, it's going to, it has a key counter, and every time we run this, it increments the value of the counter by 1. That's all it does. So like before, we have a main method, cache, we create a region, we create an instance of our example class, and all we do is increment it, and this get value gets it, increment puts it. Pretty straightforward. So let's see what this looks like in practice. Now, I'm not going to run using Gradle to run these simply because I want to use gfish, and it's important with these examples and how Gradle's set up. It's important to know where the server is going to put its information. So in this case, if I hop into gfish, it's going to create a server that's relative to gfish, and there's some Gradle stuff that's going on behind the scenes, and it'll create it in this directory. So when I switch over to the gfish on the right here, when I run this example, it's going to be we're going to have some directory mishaps. So I'm going to run everything with gfish pulling in those scripts on the right. So the only thing I'm going to use Gradle for here is to build this example. So let's go ahead, build the example, and I'm going to here go into Apache Geode bin gfish, and we're going to pass in the file location of these scripts, and those are located here. Copy that, and this is going to be in scripts start gfish. Did I get my directory wrong? Let's see. Oh, I gotta tell gfish to do something. I gotta tell it to run that. So now we're using that script that's going to start the locator, start the server, create the replicated and persistent region, and then we can go in and run the example. Cool. So let's hop in here, and that's done. We'll use Gradle to run, because all that's doing is running our example and connecting to the cluster that we have running locally here. So we'll go here and we'll run, and we'll see we'll start at 0, go to 1, we'll run this a couple times. So let's run this again. And how about again? Let's go up to 3. Cool. So we're at 3, and let's pop in here. We'll do this manually. So Apache Geode bin gfish, and as you can see, we can go in here, get region, example region, and the key is counter. Always forget to connect. So now we're using gfish. Gfish is a command line client. We're connecting, and we'll run, and we have that value of 3. Awesome. Now we're going to stop server, and the name of this server is server 1. All right, now if we did that same, we don't have that information. It's gone. Oh no. However, pop up here, because we've persisted things to disk, we will start this server again. And let's run this one more time and see what happens. And our values are back because we pulled that information from disk. I hope this was a helpful example of persisting to disk, overview of the Overflow, overview of Overflow. Really quickly, if you go in here and let's just say we create a region and we pass in, something like this, you can see all the region types. I won't go through all these kind of through this series, but using gfish, you can really easily see all the different region types we can use. We've looked at partitioning, we've looked at replicated region, we've looked at the combination of these, and in future episodes we'll look at some of these other types. But at a high level, and the big ones are partition, replicated, and now we have kind of the variants, the persisted and persistent overflow types. Again, hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next week.